kind folks over at Chicago Airbrush Supply have sent me a set of the purpose-built airbrush paints, the Createx illustration colors, and they've just asked me to give them a try and do a little review on them. A quick bit of background, these came out around 2 years ago, I believe, perhaps a little over 2 years ago, and they are a paint that I have used quite extensively. According to a poll at the Orange Airbrush Forum, which was opened midway through 2014, it shows that about 40% of users prefer to use the Createx range of paints. My personal estimate would be to say that about half of those users are using the Createx illustration colors. So it's pretty safe to say they're the most commonly used airbrush paints on the market today. The Createx illustration colors come in a range of 16 different colors and 2 different additives, a reducer and a transparent base, in case you want to weaken the color or increase your control of the color through the airbrush. Now, they originally came out in only 2-ounce quantities, but exactly like I've got to review here today, they're now all available in a 1-ounce quantity also, half the size. However, the more common colors, such as white, you can certainly get in much larger quantities, which I'd recommend if you're going to be using this particular brand of paint. Always good to have more white, isn't it? Well, that's great background information, but what you're probably all wondering is, how do they spray? So let's take a little look at how these little buggers perform. Now, I'm just using my version 2 CMSB Micron, and I've given the bottle a good shake. I'm going to put some transparent black straight into the airbrush from the bottle, no reduction. Just 3 drops there, and let's see how this little bugger sprays. Now, I'm going to be spraying this at around 20 psi. And let's just take a close look at that. So what you can see there is that it's actually quite a thick atomizing paint. You can actually see the little pigments where they've hit the paper. Now, what this will typically mean is that it's going to be a paint that offers great coverage, but is going to be a little weaker when it comes to your ability to create super fine detail with this paint, unless you add a reducer or transparent base. So why don't we take a look at the coverage with this little theory at hand. So if I just add a little shield here, and I just spray over halfway, just lightly build this up, and I can see that's covered in about 4 passes. That's covered at a 100%. So that does build up quite fast. What if I just apply a little bit more paint here? Yes. Exactly what I was saying. So it's a very strong covering paint because of the thicker pigments. Now, one of the special things that the Createx illustration colors have been designed for is what's called a delayed cross-linking. This means that you have around a 15-minute window to work with the paint before it dries really hard. So working on Yupo paper here, and shortly after spraying that color, if I get the scalpel, you can actually see that it's quite easy to erase. Now, that's a pretty cool function, because as long as you leave yourself that 15-minute window, you can take off 100% of the color. It's something very important in portraiture and realism and for creating textures. Well, that's fantastic. And I love that little delayed cross-linking that you've got going on there with the paint. But what about detail? How does it perform with detail? Well, using the same PSI and the paint straight out of the bottle, just going to clean any paint out of the tip or off the tip and give a quick little spray here. Just around 1 centimeter from the paper. I'm just pulling back ever so slightly, and you can see it's not immediately responsive because I've got a little bit of paint stuck on the tip there. And I'll move in closer. You can see I'm pulling some super fine lines there, but I can't do them for long. And that's because I'm already getting a build-up of tip dry. So a thick pigment means a great coverage, but means a little bit of weakness in detail. And just to do one last little test here, I just want to check on the drying time of the paint. So I'll just lay a heat down here, just 100%, and I'm just going to spray it for a brief moment, and just see how long it takes to dry. Typically, a thicker pigmented ink would dry a lot faster than thinner pigmented ink. It's just about dry. I've actually sprayed that down extremely heavily, as you can probably see there from the light, but it is almost dry. And I think that's a really massive strength for this actual paint, the Createx illustration colours, is how fast they do actually dry. So I already know it's very good for scratching, depending on the surface, but I'm also going to check the erasability of this just using a hard Faber-Castell Perfection eraser. But all in all, you can take my word for it that the Createx illustration colours range is fantastic for scratchability and erasability. Just using the harder side, you can actually get that right back to the paper there. So its erasability is fantastic. It's probably a little bit too easy on this Yupo paper. Here's a little panel that I sprayed earlier using skin tones mixed in Createx illustration colours. This is on clayboard, so you're going to find this acts different to Yupo paper. It's as if the paint actually has less to hold on to on the Yupo. So this gives it a little bit more strength, and using the harder eraser here, where I've applied quite a bit more of the colour, you can see it doesn't come straight off. You can actually erase in tones. So if you've done the colour too dark, as long as you can erase this in a very neat, orderly way, you can actually take off a tone. But check out the textures that I'm creating there. Now, while the majority of the tests that we've done in this video, or all of them, have been in black, the reason for that is because the other colours aim pretty much exactly the same as what you've just seen with the black, just that it's easier to see on camera. The only colour that behaves slightly different is white, because it's so thick. Okay, that means that it's a great covering paint. In terms of the mixability of colours, you can mix just about any colour that you can see visually with the eye. There's never been a colour I couldn't mix, and it comes with a range of 16. So you've got strong violets, greens, easy colours to work with, bright oranges as well. In terms of what can be done, well, if you remember the Bianca tutorials that I did back in 2013, she was all done with Createx illustration paints, and more recently, this little lady here is the latest masterpiece I was able to create using the Createx illustration paints. And it's just a credit to the intermixability of the paints, how I can get such accurate skin tones from these colours. But there's plenty of different colours also in the hair, the hand, such as the bright reds that I've got there in the nails, and I was able to get that spot on just about straight from the bottle, thanks to the Createx illustration colours. So it's definitely a brand of paint that I'd recommend, and it is one that I actually do have in my arsenal and I use frequently because I love erasing with it. So I hope this quick little review has helped you make an educated decision as to whether you want to look at getting yourself some Createx illustration paints and trying them out. And I just want to say a quick thank you to Chicago Airbrush Supply for giving me the opportunity to review these. As always, spread the love and that.